Hello, my name is Allie, and I'm a therapist who specializes in adoption. And this is Mrs. Smith, who has internationally adopted a child and is willing to answer some questions regarding the process of her international adoption, any challenges she may have faced, as well as how she was able to overcome those challenges. And my hope for this video is that I can show as well make this video available to prospective adoptive parents to see and learn from. So thank you, Mrs. Smith, for coming and talking to me today.
You're welcome.
And first, we're just going to answer or ask some pretty basic questions about the adoption process. So first off, where did you adopt from?
I adopted from Romania.
And about what year did you start your process?
We started the process in 1999 and brought our child home in 2000.
Okay. And how old was your child whenever you brought them home?
She was 9.5 months old.
Okay. And how long was the adoption process from the time that you started talking with the agency to the time that you finalized it?
Well, ours was definitely a unique situation. It was only about 6 months, which is just unheard of. So
Okay.
it was very quick.
And really quick, I was going to read off some steps that I have found from a source online. And you can tell me if this is about how it went for you. So it says
Okay.
the 5 steps in international adoption is first is the application or pre-application.
Mhm.
Then the quote unquote paper pregnancy, which is where the adoptive country learns about the family adopting from their country and is a snapshot of who the family really is, family history and background, financial situation, plan for parenting, and more. Was that about, did they do that with you?
Yes.
And then the waiting stage, which is always, and then the referral stage, which says this process can happen at any stage and varies from country to country, and it confirms that the family is matched with a specific child.
Yes. Our referral stage kind of came with the whole meeting them, the country, getting our information about who we are and all of that. Like I said, it just went really fast.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the referral process actually, we actually got a referral before our home study was completed.
Wow.
Yeah.
So they kind of just skipped a bunch of steps and did it a lot together.
Well, it wasn't that they skipped it. They just, so our agency ended up, they would get videos from the foster families that they had the children in.
Mm-hmm.
And our home study was scheduled on a Thursday. And I remember it specifically because my husband at the time, he was at church on a Wednesday night doing practice, like choir practice and stuff. And we got a phone call from the agency that said that they had gotten a video with multiple children on it that had already, the referrals were already matched up, and it had an extra child on it that they didn't know was going to be on there, and it matched what we were looking for.
Mm-hmm.
So it just, I mean, it just happened that, there's the referral and there's this child that needs a home that matched what we wanted. But then our home study wasn't until the next day. So it all kind of happened at once.
Yeah. And then obviously the last step is traveling, where it's an international adoption. You travel to go get your child.
Yeah.
And it says, and all of those travel plans are carefully coordinated with the family's medical appointments and other important in-country requirements.
Yes.
With that, was there a lot of like medical things that you had to go through?
We didn't really have to go through a lot of medical stuff. We had to, um, I'm trying to think. I really honestly don't think that there was anything like medically that we had to do.
Did you have
So
any like special vaccinations before going over to Romania?
I don't think that we had to have any special ones to go to Romania,
Okay.
if I remember correctly.
Okay, so first, I just wanted to ask how you got connected with the agency that you adopted through.
So one of the ladies that worked for the agency, we actually went to church with,
Okay.
and that's how we got connected with them.
Okay. And in your opinion, do you feel that the process of adoption or even the cost itself can easily deter people from taking that route?
Absolutely. The cost is I mean, it's definitely not anything that, most people don't just have that kind of money laying around.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I could joke about it and say, I could have bought a really, really nice car for the amount, but obviously that's, nothing in comparison.
Well,
But it is expensive.
it's funny that you say that. There's actually an article that we read, and or that I read, and that it was speaking about how a lot more children than you would even realize, their parents hold that against them.
Oh,
The
wow.
cost of their adoption, they hold it against them and saying like things like, I spent so much money and like put a sticker price on them, like I spent so much money on your adoption, and those children
Yeah.
feel like they have to live up, they have to live up to these standards of how much they cost, and then they end up feeling like they're failing or they're not doing what their parents
Yeah.
do. And so
Mm.
I feel like adoption itself is very expensive. Um,
It is.
and I feel
The
like
the good thing, I'm sorry, go ahead. The good thing about it, which again, our process was definitely much shorter than most.
Mhm.
Um, but the good thing is that the way the agency had it set out, and I'm sure most of them are this way, it's kind of a pay as you go.
Mhm.
So it's not like you have this massive amount all one lump sum that you have to pay up front.
Mhm.
You would pay certain fees at the onset to get things done. And then, like, once the referral came, then you would have another set that was due. But yes, ours, a whole lot of it came at the same time because of how it worked out. But for the most part, it does spread it out, which makes it easier. But still, at the end of the day, it's not that amount of money that most people have laying around.
And were you able to pay that out of pocket, or did you have to get financial assistance?
So we paid as much out of pocket as we could, but when everything kind of started coming in one lump sum for us, we ended up getting just a loan, just a personal loan, to pay for it, and then paid off the rest.
Okay.
So
All right. So, did you have any less than neutral remarks or opinions from any family or friends before, during, or after the adoption?
yes,
Yes.
yes,
Would you
we did.
explain?
So there was definitely a family member, a very close family member that, just couldn't understand why, we were adopting outside the country,
Mhm.
why we were adopting at all, and, just couldn't understand how we could love another child,
Mhm.
that wasn't our own.
Yeah.
Um, but once that family member saw the child, like started seeing pictures and things like that, things started changing a little. But once that person saw the child in person,
Mhm.
it was like
It was never the same.
It was never the same. And it was as if everything else that was said or thought of was just gone.
Hmm. And do you feel like you had enough full support while going through the adoption process?
Yes, I do. We
And
had massive amounts of support. So
that's good. And do you feel that things may have been different or harder if you hadn't had that support?
I definitely think they would have been harder. And I don't know that they would be different. It certainly wouldn't have changed our outcome.
Hmm.
Um, because, her dad and I, like, that's what we wanted to do. And at that point, it really didn't matter what anybody else thought.
Yeah,
That's what we wanted. But yes, it would have been harder because it is a lot. It is very emotionally draining. So to have that support was very good.
of course. And you see a lot of people who, like you mentioned before, somebody, a family member, a friend might be like in their ear saying, like, are you sure you'll be able to love a child that's not yours? And then if you
Yeah.
multiply that by like the majority of the family and friends, if not all of them, I feel like a lot of couples would fall under that pressure and then feel like
Hmm.
they wouldn't be able to adopt and they would question themselves on if they would be able to love a child that wasn't their biologically theirs. So it's
Yes.
really good that you all had your mindset, and even if it was like that, you would have been like, "Well, I'm gonna do it
Hmm.
anyway."
Yes.
And I feel like that's important for prospective adoptive parents to keep in mind. Is even if your family isn't supportive, although that helps, if this is something you really want to do and you really feel like you can do successfully, then that's something that you need to keep your eye on.
Absolutely.
Let's see. How easy was it for you to grow a connection or attachment with your child after you brought them home?
It was just super easy. I mean, it was just like she was ours, you know. No, I didn't give birth to her, but we watched her grow through videos, of course, from across the country. Um, but we did get to see some of those little milestones for the first few months of her life, which, yes, as an adoptive parent, like, you have to get over, you have to you and get over isn't really the right word, but you have to work through the fact that you are not there to physically see the first time they turn over, the first time that they crawl, because you're not there. But you can see it somewhat through videos and pictures. So you are growing with your child,
And
just in a
even
very different way.
And even, you said that you brought your child home at 9 months old. So at that point, like there was still like many, many milestones and many, many stages that you were able to
Yes.
go through. And even with
Yes.
children who are older, like toddler, adolescent, even teenage phase, yes, the adoptive parents may have missed out on like the majority of their childhood if they're in a teenage stage. But there's still, even going into adulthood, so many stages and so many milestones
Hmm.
you get to watch and help them grow through. And so
Yes.
a lot of people, a lot of things that people have to go through whenever they're adopting and fostering is, especially with older children, the attachment isn't always as easy. If they're like,
Yes.
even if they're like 2 or 3 years old, they've been through the foster care system or they've been through abusive and neglective parents, and sometimes it's foster parents
Hmm.
abusive and neglected. So by the time that they get to their adoptive parents, they're they feel like they can't trust, and it takes a lot to gain that trust, and it takes a lot to get that attachment. And so
Hmm.
there's a lot of different types of attachments, and I feel like, in my personal opinion, children who have um, went through a rough time before they were with their adoptive parents kind of go through those different stages of attachments until they get to like a secure attachment.
Hmm.
So it is really good, because I've even heard stories of babies who are adopted, and even like babies, subconsciously you can lose that trust with people, and that can grow with you as you get older. Do you feel that it was easy, which I kind of already, you already kind of answered this question, but do you feel that it was easy for your baby to grow a connection with your husband and the rest of your family?
Yes, I definitely do. You know, she was she well, most babies, you know, have this kind of personality where they're like, I'm not sure who you are. You know, most of them, you can't just go grab them and love on them, you know, and hold them and things like that. And she definitely had that, but like she would go to anybody if they picked her up, but she would just kind of look at them for a while, like, not real sure who you are, but you know, I'm just gonna look at you and kind of assess you. But that was just kind of always her personality. That's how she was as a baby.
So whenever you went to see her for the first time, is that how she was with you and your husband?
Yes, she was. She just look at us, which, you know, she was used to her foster parents.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and that was her comfort zone, was her foster parents. But fortunately, you know, her foster parents were the ones who came with the agency representative, you know, whenever we met her and picked her up. So so of course, you know, here she is being sent from this mom to this mom, you know, and this dad to this dad. But you know, they had taken such great care of her, and she had foster siblings, you know, in the home. Like she had a dog, maybe two in the home, you know, and then mom and dad. So like she had just basically everything that a adoptive parents would want her
Mhm.
to be exposed to. That's what she was, a loving family.
Yeah. Um, let's see. Do you feel that it may have been easier for you because your child was so young? Like the attachment process and the connection and whatnot?
I feel like it probably was, yes. And you know, you hear the stories about when they're older, how difficult it is, whether they're in a foster home or they've been in multiple, or you know, being overseas, doing international adoption. Many of them are in orphanages, so uh, at that point they really don't know how to bond.
Hmm.
So you have the opposite, you know, of an attachment, is they're just not getting it at all. So I feel like with her being so young and her being in a wonderful foster family environment, that just helped tremendously.
Of course. And would you be able to explain how you were able to transition into parenting lifestyle? Because women who are able to have their own children, they kind of have, 9 months to prepare. And although a lot of people, their adoption process is normally a lot longer than yours. Sometimes it's over a span of a few years. Sometimes it's a
Hmm.
year. Sometimes it's
Hmm.
longer. And so, I wouldn't say that they don't have necessarily the time to get prepared, but with a pregnant woman, they're like biologically getting prepared. They've got
Hmm.
the hormones and the feelings and everything going through them organically. And with you, like you said about like what, 6 months or so, um,
Yes.
to be able to get, your home ready, buy stuff, get everybody, your family on board, tell people, prepare yourself mentally and physically to be a parent. So, like, how were you able to do that successfully without kind of giving yourself a culture shock?
um I don't know that there wasn't a culture shock. You know, because yes, a woman who is pregnant, you know, gets to go through that process, uh, the whole 9 months of pregnancy, and while doing that, they're like you said, preparing. Um, on the flip side of that, someone like myself who was not able to be pregnant and carry a child, uh, I had to get the house ready, buy all the stuff, uh, prepare for an infant to come in my home, all while at the same time trying to work through the grief that I couldn't have a child naturally.
Mhm.
So, um, in a sense, it's, I feel like it's harder,
Yeah, and that's what I was
because
saying,
yeah, you don't have that 9 months of bonding with the child inside you.
yeah.
Instead of bonding, you're grieving that
Mhm.
because you don't have that. And then, to even go further, we had the first 9 months of our child's life that we weren't there for.
Mhm.
So it's, instead of, I feel like the joy, you do get the joy, but you also have a lot of grief that comes along with it.
Yeah, and even like on the attachment source that I was speaking about earlier, which is actually from the Attachment Parenting International website, um, it was even talking about how attachment, one of the reasons why attachment may be harder with adoptive parents and adoptive children is because whenever a woman is pregnant with a child, the bonding and the attachment starts when the baby is in the womb.
Mhm.
And
Yes.
so, the baby comes out knowing this is my mom.
Hmm.
This is my mom. I've heard her. I've, felt her. I've heard her
Yes.
heartbeat. And so, that's the reason why I was like, how, because it would be easy, it would be harder as an adoptive parent because like you said, not only are you trying to get everything ready physically and emotionally, but you're also trying to get over the fact that you weren't able to have your own biological child, which is
Hmm.
something that many women like, you know, strive to do.
Yes.
So, um, and while raising your child with a different ethnicity, do you feel that you came across much judgment? And if so, may you explain?
Definitely. Whether or not it was judgment, I really can't say because I'm not in the minds of other people. But we definitely got the looks, because obviously I'm fair skinned. Freckles, red hair. Her dad is blonde hair, blue eyes, fair skin. She is just the opposite. She is the olive skin, the dark hair, the dark eyes. So yeah, we got lots of looks, like, that doesn't she doesn't look like you, doesn't look like your child. Um, so what was going through their mind, I don't know. But probably it's a good thing that I didn't know. But yes, we definitely got some looks. We got lots of questions once people would find out that she was adopted. Um, but I think the biggest thing that I remember is we brought her home in 2000, and uh, in 2001 is when the World Trade Centers were, um, taken down. So I recall shortly after, like that Thanksgiving after, we were traveling. And so, things were still very secure, and, just, it was just really crazy at that point. And I can remember taking her through the airport, and we would go through security, and we would walk like 5 feet, and they would want to check us again, and we would literally get checked, and we would walk another 5 feet to start gathering our stuff, and we would get stopped again. And I'm like, why is this happening? And it happened at every single airport even if we had went through security before. And like the only thing that we could think of was uh, like she looked like she could be Middle Eastern. I mean, she had the skin tone and everything, you know, and then here we are, obviously not. So in my mind, I really contribute like her look to them doing that. And I mean, I hate to say that, but the it was just ridiculous at how many times that it happened.
Hmm. Of course.
So,
Um, Sometimes professionals feel that it's best to place children who have similar, if not the same, race, ethnicities, and cultures to parents, potential parents, and even foster families who have the same. And do you feel that that might be important? And if so, why? And if not, why?
um, I don't think it's important. What I think is important is how the adoptive parents deal with the questions that are going to come up about the differences in how they look, the differences in culture. And the best thing, like we were always very open with our child from, day one is that you're adopted, like you were chosen, you know, that makes you more special because you were chosen.
Mhm.
Um, it doesn't matter if you look like me or not, you're still my child. I still raise you. And we always tried to like let her know that these are certain Romanian cultures. This is something that they would do as a like at Christmas or something like that. um and then we've always told her at some point, you will probably want to go back to Romania because she hasn't been. And obviously, we knew that like at age 10, it's not a good idea for her to go because at that point she's not going to uh, respect where she came from. But when she got to the point that she could, we told her, if you want to go, we'll take you. We would love for you to see where you were born, just to see the country that you came from. I think it would give her a better appreciation because obviously in America things are very different. But at the same time, that's her choice. She has to make that choice if she wishes to. If she does, great, and if she doesn't, that's fine too.
And you kind of already answered my next question, which was, did your child know growing up that they were adopted? And so you said yes, you made that clear. And obviously, some people, especially if they're the same ethnicity as their adopted child, they kind of not just like keep it from them, but they just don't have that conversation with them. And then when
Mm-hmm.
they're older, they have to be like, okay, well, it's probably time for them to know, or the child finds out, and that can cause some tension because they're like,
Yes.
you didn't tell me.
Yeah.
Obviously, with your child, it probably was a little bit different. They would have figured it out on their own pretty quickly because you said
Yeah.
you and your husband are white and your child was not. But, you know, some things that they say, especially in like the preschool years, whenever it's harder for them to understand, because, as a child gets older, they have different sets of questions and they have different
Mm-hmm.
thought processes on, their adoption or their birthing process. And I know some children growing up adopted, whenever they're at those really young stages, they don't realize that they had a mother that was also pregnant with them, and they don't realize that a person actually did give birth to them. They felt like their friends had mothers that gave birth to them, and they came into this world some different type of way. They weren't given birth to. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's always good to explain to them, like you did, like, you
Mm-hmm.
know, somebody else gave birth to you, but we are your parent, we're your parents,
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but that's neither here nor there. Do it differently. But obviously, the most successful way is how you did it. Make it known from the very start.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so You kind of also talked about the next question after that was why is it important that your child knew? And you kind of explained that, that's just something that's a part of life and you wanted them to know that they were special and chosen. But other than that, why do you think it makes such a big difference in a child's life that they know that that they're adopted? Like if you were to have a white baby, why do you think
Hmm.
it would be so important for them to know that they were adopted and not try to make it seem as if you were pregnant with them and gave birth to
Hmm. Well, for one, I think obviously there's going to come a time that something in life is going to happen where you're going to have to tell them. And I feel like the longer you go without telling them, the harder it is for that trust to come back. I mean, it could be something as simple as them needing a blood, which is not simple, but needing a blood transfusion or needing to know blood type. And, how did you get this blood type when you all are this blood type? It's just, I just, I think the trust factor would be so difficult to get past if you weren't honest and upfront with them, at least at an early age. I'm not saying that it couldn't happen until they were 8 or 9, but I mean, they definitely would need to have it, it would need to happen before they really had a true, deep understanding of the fact that they think that you are their true parents.
them? Um, so did your child ever express concern or curiosity about their birth parents?
Yes. Yes. We, of course, we had always told her, we are your adopted parents. You had a mom and dad in Romania. There really wasn't ever much question about the father, which we didn't know anything really about either one of them. But she would question every now and then the mother. Why did my mom not want me?
Mm-hmm.
And that was, I think, the hardest thing for me to hear as a mother, because in my mind, given the circumstances in Romania, it was poor. The democracy over there hadn't really been in place for but just a few years when we had adopted her. So prior to that, the government had paid for abortions, and at this point, they just, nobody could afford to do it because now they had to pay for it. And, in my mind, it's not because her mom didn't want her or didn't love her. It's just that I felt like that her mom loved her enough that she knew that she couldn't give her the life that she needed. And that's why instead of choosing abortion, she chose adoption. And, I'm forever thankful for that. Like every single Mother's Day, I just thank God for her. And I'm thankful for her wherever she is, because without her giving up that major sacrifice, I can't even imagine. But without her giving up that sacrifice, I wouldn't have the child that I have.
Mm-hmm.
And I've just always tried to tell her that it's not that she gave you up, it's not that she didn't love you or didn't want you, she just knew that she couldn't care for you. So I've always tried to teach her that that's a huge sacrifice for her mom to do that.
Of course. And what would you say are some of the biggest challenges that you faced just overall when it came to adoption, and how did you combat those challenges?
um I think the biggest challenge for us was, and still is really, and probably will be for the rest of her life, is, because we know nothing about her parents, that also means that we know nothing about medical backgrounds, history, anything like that. And as you know, that your parents, medical history, your grandparents' medical history can follow you throughout your life and cause problems or issues with a child. So, not having that when something happens to her is really difficult, because you think of all the worst stuff that could possibly be like, oh my gosh, and wonder if, wonder what was in her history, her parents' history, her grandparents' history. Is this something that's related to that? And we don't know what it is. How are we going to find out? So I think just the medical history part has been the most difficult. Because, I mean, like, she had ADHD as a kid, and again, like, you don't know, even when her mom was pregnant with her, did she really truly get the prenatal care that she needed? Like, and because, is that related? I mean, you always question every little thing when it comes to that. But that was our biggest challenge.
Yeah, of course. All right. Well, I think that that's all the questions I have for you today. So I wanted to thank you very much for talking with me and speaking with me. I'm sure that a lot of parents, adoptive parents who maybe have recently adopted, or parents who are looking to adopt, will really find this video very useful and informative, as you've been very open about your experience, shared some challenges, and also shared why it's so wonderful to adopt. So
Yes.
I want to thank you again
You're
for
welcome.
giving me your time, and I will talk to you later.
Okay. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.